Welcome back to Anime Scar. This is my recap for the anime I Parry Everything. If you enjoy my recaps, make sure to like and subscribe. Let's dive in. This dude nor ain't living in some fairy tale world or nothing. He's a real badass for his age. Everybody in town loves him. He's got this job doing manual labor, and even his boss is all like, damn, this guy's the best worker I've ever seen. So one day, Nor's chilling after getting paid, ready to head home, when he hears this lady screaming for help from this nearby cave. He straight up bolts over there, even though his boss warns him it could be dangerous, but he don't care. He ignores everyone's warnings and dives right into that cave. This chick all wrapped up in some freaky barbed wire, while a group of adventurers are going head to head with a massive demon bull. Since he was a kid, Nor's had to hold it down for his mom and run the household because his deadbeat dad ain't ever come back with the milk. But he takes it like a champ. He takes care of his sickly mom, makes her soup, all covered in soot, and tells her he's gonna hunt some rabbits to get her some protein for dinner. His mom cleans his face and apologizes for not being able to give him much in life. But Nor put on a brave face and told her he doesn't need anything anyways. Later that night, he cooks up rabbit stew for his mom, but when he goes to feed her, she's already passed away. Now Nor ain't got no family left in this messed up world. He buries his mom outside the crib and decides he can't be weak and cry about it. He starts living on his own, taking care of the garden, hunting game, and looking after them farm animals. He cleans his room like a boss and studies hard. He works out by catching wild fish, hauling heavy shit up the mountains, and eating protein like it's going out of style. One night, feeling all alone, he climbs up on a chair, pulls out this old dusty storybook, and starts reading it. Takes him back to when his family was still together, and his pops used to tell him tales about epic adventurers who fought dragons, learned magic from wizards, broke curses in spooky forests, and battled armies of elves. Their stories got him all hyped because his pops always said adventurers have to protect the weak and make sure they're safe. That shit inspires him to do something meaningful with his own life. The next day, after taking care of his animals, he gets ready to leave home and head to the city to become a freaking adventurer. He spends the night in the forest, chilling by a campfire, and by morning, he rolls up in the dope-ass city of his kingdom. He walks through the massive gate and damn, he's blown away by the crazy amount of people hustling and bustling in the markets, selling their stuff, and folks buying swords and fruit all in one place. While he's strolling around, he spots this dude rocking a sword and decides to trail him. Turns out, the guy leads him straight to the Adventurers Guild. He walks into the joint, and instead of finding a hot girl at the front desk, there's this big, beefy dude. Bummer. He tells the guy he's here to be an adventurer, but the dude just brushes him off, saying this ain't no place for kids and he should think about his folks. Nor fires back saying his parents are dead, and that catches the dude's attention. He tells him to swing by the training school first. Nor's kind of confused, but this dude, let's call him Fatty, says if he wants to join a guild, he's got to pick a school, go through basic training, choose his class and skills, and only then, after he graduates, can he become an adventurer. Nor's stoked to get this info and heads to a school with one goal in mind: to become the strongest swordsman. He signs up and starts training with the sword. But even after weeks go by, while all the other students are unlocking their magic powers, Nor's still left without any magical abilities. He keeps at it though, and months go by. Then the instructor drops the bomb on him, saying he ain't got the talent and he's wasting his time. He tells Nor to try a different school because he ain't cut out to be a swordsman. But Nor ain't about to give up. He finds another school and decides to train as a warrior. He works his ass off under this big, fat, red-haired dude. But even after intense training for months, the red-haired dude tells him he ain't got what it takes, just knows how to parry attacks. So, he tries out different schools, first as a hunter, but he gets the boot. Then he tries being a thief, but they reject him because he sucks at it. Next up, he gives magicians a shot, but even that's a fail. Finally, he tries his hand at healers, but no dice. He heads back feeling like a total letdown. Fatty's shocked to hear that Nor spent all that time at different schools and didn't learn a damn thing. He tells him, unfortunately, there's nothing he can do to become an adventurer. Nor's bummed out but decides he ain't gonna admit defeat. He heads back to his crib in the woods and sets up his own training with his sword. He decides to master the one move he knows: parrying and deflecting attacks. He spends days and nights perfecting it. After a whole year of hardcore training, he gets strong enough to parry 10 attacks at once. He ain't done, though he keeps training, and 3 years later, he's parrying 100 swords at once, but still no new skills. He keeps grinding endlessly until his sword breaks. 14 years go by, and he realizes he's trained every single day. Now he can parry 1,000 swords at once without fail. But even with all that hard work, he ain't gaining any new skills. Still, he decides to give the Adventurers Guild another shot. This time, he meets a young girl who checks out his skills and tells him to hit up the training school. Nor tells her that he has already been through them. The girl's surprised, telling him he ain't got the skills to be an adventurer. Nor gets bummed out once again when the fatty comes out and barely recognizes him. They kick back and have a chat over some brews. Nor spills about his years of training. Fatty drops some knowledge, saying there are ranks in adventuring from E to S. But even to reach E rank, you gotta have at least one skill, which Nor lacks. Nor feels down, but Fatty spills a secret. Not many know, but there's a rank below E called F. F-rank adventurers have some limitations, though they can't take kill quests or venture into the forests outside the city. They're stuck doing odd jobs in the city, like grunt work. It ain't exactly glamorous. Surprisingly, Nor jumps on the opportunity and finally gets his adventurer's license. He starts hustling odd jobs in the city hauling heavy stuff, tracking down lost cats, and keeps training every damn night. He even takes care of elderly folks, cooking up meals for them. While doing all this, he keeps training and finds joy in being an adventurer who can help folks. Now we're back in the present. A massive bull comes stomping toward the adventurers and smacks the leader with an axe, sending him flying into the wall. Nor rushes to check on him, only to find out the guy's dead. He peeks over and sees the bull skewering the rest of the crew, taking them out like it's nothing. Then the beast locks eyes on the white-haired girl. Without a second thought, Nor springs into action. He chucks a rock at the bull to divert its attention, then bolts, but the monster's fast and closes in on him. Nor realizes he can't outrun it, so he spins around and parries its attack. Surprisingly, his parry's so strong that it sends the bull crashing into the wall. It bounces back, ready to attack again. But Nor keeps parrying its strikes like a pro. He knows that one slip-up means certain death. He searches for an opening, but damn, he ain't got a single offensive skill to strike back. His swords start breaking bit by bit, but the demon turns toward the girl and charges. Nor taps into his feather step ability. Boosting his speed, he appears in front of the bull and deflects its attack once more. But his own sword pays the price. He remembers his old man's words about how an adventurer defends the weak, even if it costs them their own life. So with a broken sword, he stands his ground. When the monster strikes again, Nor parries with all his might. The axe gets deflected so hard that it bounces back and cleanly chops the bull's head off before getting stuck in the rocks. The girl's completely stunned as blood splatters everywhere, and the magical jabber wire fades away from her body. Nor falls to the ground, gazing at his shattered sword, and realizes how close he came to biting the dust. The girl thanks him for saving her life and asks for his name, but Nor brushes it off, saying his name ain't worth remembering. He walks away, heading back outside. He strolls through the streets, reflecting on how he almost got taken out by a giant cow. He knows he's got to train even harder if he's gonna truly become an adventurer who can protect people. A little later, a crew comes in to clean up the mess and move the freaking Minotaur and all the poor souls who bit the dust fighting it. Princess Lindbergh feels like it's all on her, like she's personally responsible for their deaths. Right then, her knight rushes up to her and says sorry for not sticking by her side when she went into the dungeon. It's her knight's job to protect Lynn, after all. But Lynn tells her it ain't her fault. This whole thing was just a basic test to see who's fit to take the throne, so it wouldn't make sense to force her knight to tag along. Just then, another knight tells Lynn that they got to head back to the castle soon. Lord Rain wants to have a chat with her, and she already knows what that's gonna be about. Back at the castle, Lord Rain just finished talking to Lynn, trying to make sense of what went down. But none of it adds up for him. The only way a Minotaur could end up in that part of the dungeon is if some magic-wielding summoned it. The knight agrees with that theory. He thinks it's got something to do with a dead merchant they found at the scene, with a ring. When they checked it out, they found out the damn ring's got some crazy pure magic stone in it. That ain't something you can just sell on the market. A Minotaur is a top-level demon, so it's not like any random rich dude can buy something to control it, and the crest on the ring says it's from the magical empire of Doritos. So Rain thinks they're behind all this crap because they've always had beef with him. But even then, the fact that they straight up tried to assassinate Lynn and didn't even bother to cover their tracks means they're trying to lure Rain into starting a war. Plus, they want control of the dungeon. But Rain's also thinking about that guide who saved Lynn. According to the reports, he whipped the Minotaur in seconds with a busted sword. And to top it off, when the castle spies tried to follow him, the dude vanished right in front of their eyes. Rain can't believe what he's hearing. He's dead set on finding out who the hell this mysterious warrior is. Meanwhile, Nor just got back to the guild, and the guild master's surprised he's still kicking. He heard about a demon showing up in the dungeon, right where Nor was working, so he thought Nor might have bit the dust. Nor apologizes for scaring him and explains that he had some shady folks tailing him last night, so he had to shake them off and went home without reporting it. The guild master tells him he's lucky to be alive because a Minotaur is a demon so strong that even a rank adventurer would get wiped out in an instant. Nor still doesn't realize they're talking about the same damn cow he took down, so he asks what happened to that demon. The guild master tells him some mystery man took care of it. Nor is oblivious to the fact that he's the mystery, so he just goes ahead and gives a report for the jobs he finished today. The guild master hands him his payment, but tells him he's better off getting a regular job because it pays more, but Nor don't give a damn about the money. He just wants to be an adventurer. Right then, Lin sneaks up behind Noor and says she's glad she finally found him. She apologizes for invading his privacy, but she really wanted to see him again. So she used her long-distance detection skill to track him down. Noor figures she must be a thief-class adventurer if she's got a detection skill. But Lin says she's a magician. She's got skills in all sorts of classes, even if they're just basic. The guild master and the other folks are starting to recognize Lin, so she asks if she and Noor can talk outside. Before he goes, though, the guild master grabs Noor and asks what the hell he did to get Lin looking for him. Noor says he ain't done nothing illegal, so he shouldn't be in any trouble. The guild master tells him to go with Lin and not do any stupid shit. Outside, Lin hides herself and Noor using one of her skills, so nobody can see them. Once they finally find a private spot, Lin apologizes again for interrupting Noor, knowing a guy like him must have a lot going on. Noor says it's all good, and Lin starts by thanking him again for what he did. She says he not only saved her life, but also countless others in the country. Noor doesn't think he deserves such high praise, considering all he did was take down a freaking cow. He even thinks Lin could have handled it herself if he hadn't shown up. He saw a bunch of knights getting slaughtered by the same cow. So Lin tries to make him understand that she would have been toast if he hadn't come to her rescue. But Noor still doesn't think he did much. He appreciates her thanks. Then Lin says she wants to give him a reward to show her gratitude. Noor tells her a simple thank you is more than enough, so she doesn't have to give him anything else. But Lin insists on rewarding him and wants her father to meet Noor too. This guy doesn't want a reward. Lin tries again, asking if there's anything she can do for him, or if she can even get him his own territory. But Noor keeps saying he doesn't want it. Lin starts crying, telling him he has to accept her gratitude, and she ain't moving until he agrees to take something from her. Noor remembers a time when he used this same tactic to get a cleric to train him. He doesn't want Lin standing here all day, so he finally agrees to meet her father. But he's still not up for any fancy gifts. Lin's happy to hear that, telling Noor to stick close to her so she can use her concealment skills to keep them unnoticed. Eventually, Noor is brought to Lin's crib, and as they enter, Lin asks for his name, which he gladly gives. But Noor still doesn't know who Lin is, so she apologizes for being rude and introduces herself as Lindbergh Clays. Dang, that's a mouthful. So she goes by Lin most of the time. Now that Noor sees the house, he realizes Lin wasn't joking about her father being loaded. No wonder the guild master was worried about him making a fool of himself. As they walk, they bump into In, and Lin's stoked to see her. She runs up and asks where her old man is. Inez tells her he's in a meeting with Rain, so he's busy right now. But before that, she wants to know who the dude standing there is. Lin explains that Noor is the one who saved her life. Inez says she'll lead them to Lin's father. Noor ain't never heard of a royal knight, so he assumes she's some kind of maid in the family. A maid who digs wearing armor for some reason. You can tell Inez ain't too fond of him, but he has no clue why. While they walk, they come across a dude chilling by the window. As soon as he spots them, he gets up and asks Inez what's up and who the random guy is. Inez tells Gilbert to chill with his spear since Noor is Lin's guest, and pointing weapons at guests is hella rude. Gilbert realizes that Noor must be the one who saved Lin's life, so he puts his weapon down. Inez asks him to join them in the room because she could use all the help she can get. Gilbert's got a bad impression of Noor now, and Noor can already tell this ain't gonna end well for him if things keep going like this, but he keeps walking anyway. In the freaking throne room, the king is in the middle of a meeting with Rain, and he's all pissed because Doritos ain't giving a damn about honoring their peace treaty. Rain saw it coming after the last meeting with the king of Doritos, where he straight up demanded the rights to the dungeon. That got shut down, but ever since then, the king of Doritos has been plotting their downfall. Just then, Lin and the crew roll up in the throne room, and Lin's all hyped, going over to greet her bro and pops. Inez and Gilbert kneel to show respect to the king, but Noor just keeps walking. Rain peeps that Lin's rocking the disguise cloak, meaning she must snuck outside without permission. But she says she had to because there was no other way to find the dude who saved her. The king catches on that she's talking about Noor, and Noor apologizes for showing up all messed up. But Lin was all about rushing here ASAP. He also mentions he ain't no fancy noble or nothing, so he don't know all the proper etiquette for this stuff, and he might accidentally say something rude. But the king tells him he's cool with it because it's much easier to talk without worrying about etiquette. The king extends his hand to Noor and formally thanks him for saving Lin's life. Noor says, "Thank you is enough for me." But the king can't let Noor off the hook without a decent reward, so he tells him to name any amount of cash or land he wants. But Noor still ain't interested. The king's taken aback, but he ups the ante by offering Noor half of all the treasures they scored from the dungeon. Rain thinks that's way too much for a single guy, but Noor is still like, no, not my thing. Now the king's clueless about what to give Noor since he's rejecting everything. So he goes to his throne and grabs a massive sword hanging there and offers it as a gift. Rain ain't too keen on giving away such a valuable sword, but the king's like, "It's cool, I don't use it no more, and we can swap it with a fake so nobody finds out." He hands it over to Noor, and as soon as Noor holds it and feels the weight, He knows it's worth a fortune, and he don't want to accept no extravagant gifts, but the king insists it's just something he picked up back when he was an adventurer, so it's all good. Nor finally agrees, and the king asks him to give it a test swing. Nor goes for it and swings that sword in the air, generating a crazy amount of force and blowing everyone's minds. The king gives props to Nor for swinging that sword with one hand, but he's got a favor to ask. He wants Nor to help train Lin to be an adventurer, but Nor says there's nothing he could teach someone as talented as Lin. Plus, he thinks it's up to Lin to decide if she wants to do that. After that, Nor figures it's time to head home. But before he dips, he realizes his sword's got the perfect shape to fit in them gutters he usually cleans. So he's gonna give it a shot tomorrow morning, before he can leave. Inez steps up and says she wants to chat with him first. She apologizes for her rude behavior earlier because it was completely uncalled for. But Nor's like, I don't mind at all. Your job is to protect the Clay's family no matter what. So she's mad grateful to Nor for saving Lin's life. And to show her gratitude, she promises to have Nor's back if he ever needs help. Nor ain't looking to go back and forth about this, so he just accepts her offer and says he'll ask if he ever needs anything. Aside from that, Inez also warns Nor that he better not speak to the king so casually again, because even if the king's cool with it now, she ain't letting no disrespect slide next time. Nor says he gets it, so Inez is in a good mood and asks him for his name. And when she hears it's Nor, she seems weirdly shocked. Nor asks if I did something wrong again, but Inez brushes it off and bounces. Nor's about to bounce too, but Gilbert stops him, wanting to challenge him to a fight. Gilbert's leading Nor down a hallway, and Nor wonders where he is being taken, because he just wants to go back to work. But Gilbert surprises him and takes him to a freaking training arena for a mock duel between them. Nor's mind is blown because he hasn't gone all out in a spar since his training days. So Gilbert grabs a wooden pole for practice and drops the bomb that he's a big shot in the capital. Then he's like, Nor, pick your weapon. Nor's thinking, this is my chance to learn from a professional warrior, so he goes for a regular wooden sword. He knows he ain't gonna be much of a challenge for Gilbert, but he's still gonna give it his all. Gilbert makes the first move, thrusting his staff at Nor, but Nor's too slick and dodges like a boss. He can see Gilbert's moves are smooth and on point, showing mad training, but for some reason, it looks slow to Nor. He figures Gilbert's holding back because Nor's weak, so Nor calls a timeout and tells Gilbert to stop babying him. Gilbert's like, alright, I'll get serious. This time he amps up the intensity, but it ain't fast enough to overwhelm Nor. Every time Gilbert misses an attack, Nor finds an opening in his defense. Meanwhile, Gilbert's getting frustrated because none of his strikes are landing on Nor, so he pulls a sneaky move, changing his trajectory at the last moment, making Nor jump, and then bam! He strikes him down when he lands. Nor dodges that too, like a freaking ninja. He tells Gilbert to step it up because he can handle the pace. That hurts Gilbert's ego because he was already giving it his all. Nor starts realizing he might be stronger than Gilbert. But then out of nowhere, the elite guard pulls off his special move on Nor. It's a close call, but Nor dodges that shiz and moves to the side. Seeing the power of Gilbert's attack, Nor immediately declares that he no longer wishes to fight. So Nor bounces from the palace, but his skills cause a freaking uproar among the other knights. They can't believe he dodged their captain's special attack. Some of them think Nor only survived because Gilbert was using a practice spear. They're like, this dude's a genius. He could take down anyone if he wanted to. Hearing that mess takes Gilbert back to the past. He used to be a spear prodigy, going around the kingdom, wrecking powerful peeps left and right. Nobody could even come close to challenging him, and he got bored as hell. That's when he hit up the capital and joined the knights, hoping to battle monsters because they were tougher than humans. But even monsters couldn't stand up to his strength and skills, and he stayed bored as ever. Then one day, when he was just chilling, the master of the sword school showed up. Turns out, he was the one who trained Gilbert back in the early days. Gilbert straight up complains about how freaking boring it is to be so damn strong. He wishes there were more peeps as strong as his master, so he could have some fun throwing down with them. But the master just tells him that one day, someone even better than him will come out of his students. And Gilbert's like, I hope that happens while I'm still kicking, because that's the only way I'll shake off this boredom. Now Gilbert's mind is all over the place as he thinks about this dude who took down a minotaur with a single hit. He always knew Nor was an interesting person, but he didn't see anything special in his strength at first. But when they sparred, he realized Nor was way stronger than he looked. When Nor tells him to step it up, Gilbert busts out his special attack, faster than the freaking speed of sound, knowing damn well nobody can survive that. But Nor dodges that shiz, and Gilbert feels like a total loser. And to top it off, Nor ends the fight just like that. Gilbert thinks Nor did it to save him from embarrassment in front of his crew. And before leaving, Nor tells him he's looking forward to their next encounter. Now Gilbert thinks he finally found someone who can make his life a bit more exciting. On the flip side, Nor has no clue how highly Gilbert rates him. Nor used his body strengthening and fancy footwork skills to dodge Gilbert's ultimate attack at the last freaking second. If he was even a moment late, he'd be 6 feet under. He thinks Gilbert purposely adjusted the speed of his attack to give him just enough room to dodge, and he's grateful to Gilbert for showing him that he still needs a crap ton more training. The next day, Nor starts cleaning drains with the kick-ass sword he got from the king, and he's blown away by how freaking awesome the sword is. Later, he's chilling in the forest because his construction job got put on hold thanks to that Minotaur incident. He's wondering how the heck he's gonna pass the time until the job opens up again, and he wants to put that huge sword to good use. He's thinking it could make a sick-ass oar or a badass pizza shovel, maybe even a grill plate, but he ain't got the resources to start those businesses. He tries out his fire magic and realizes it's too weak to start a decent BBQ. Then he hears footsteps sneaking up behind him, and he turns around to find Lynn standing there, specifically looking for him. Nor's like, "How can I help you?" And Lynn straight up asks to be his apprentice so she can learn from him while serving him. She's eager to do whatever he wants, but Nor shuts her down, saying he can't teach her squat because he's self-sufficient in everything. Lynn tries offering him money for his training, but Nor's like, "No, I want nothing." She keeps insisting that she'll be useful to him, but Nor can't get his point across to her clearly. To prove she's worthy of learning from him, Lynn decides to flex her magic powers. She conjures up icicle lances and shoots them at herself, then burns them off with a badass fire spell. Next, she chops down a massive tree with a tiny dagger using some other skill, and then blasts a tree behind Nor with a magic sword move. She's all confident that Nor will finally accept her as his apprentice after this sick display, but he still shuts her down. Now he realizes Lynn's putting him on a pedestal and wonders how the hell he can make her see that he's got nothing on her. He decides to show off his skill and creates a puny fireball to prove he's a frigging loser. And Lynn's straight up shocked by it. She starts walking home. Thinking about this story the teachers used to tell about a talentless boy. Back then, Lynn just thought it was a cautionary tale because she never believed a 12-year-old kid could survive the brutal training of all 6 magic schools for a full term. Even the seasoned warriors found it tough to stick around. One day, the strongest magician who runs the magic school showed her his puny fire skill and then amped it up to show off his mastery. The magician said it takes decades of practice to make the tiny flame skill bigger. So when Nor showed Lynn his tiny fire today, she was speechless because it was way bigger than the strongest magician in the world. He told her that's all he can manage, and his skills in other areas are at the same level. Only Lynn knows that the size of that small fire says a lot about Nor's abilities, and she figures he's a master in other branches too. Now she's feeling ashamed because she was all proud of the high-level skills that she just learned. She realizes that despite being exponentially stronger than her, Nor never brags about his power. He does even the most basic tasks to help others. She thinks Nor's mind and character are just as strong as his body, and nothing can shake him. As the princess, she knows she'll have to lead the kingdom with her brother one day, and that means she needs to be strong. She wants to learn from Nor how to become strong, so she reaches out to him once again. Just as he's leaving a restaurant after dinner, Lynn tells him she totally gets how immature and vain she was, and now she wants to learn from him even more. She believes his strength will be the foundation of peace and prosperity for their kingdom. So she accepts him as her master. But Nor's deeply troubled by it all and just wants to go home. We see Rain thinking about why his dad would hand over his sword to Nor. We found out that back when the king was an adventurer, he hit up the Dungeon of Lost with the 6 sovereigns. After years of exploring, they found the Black Blade, the sickest relic ever. It's made from stuff tougher than mithril or orichalcum, and nothing can scratch it. That's why they called it the Unbreakable Blade. But they were all wondering why it looked so beat up if it was indestructible. Rain thinks his dad was crazy to just give it away, but he knows there's some dark force threatening their country. So his dad must be betting on Nor. We see Nor with Lynn, and he's wondering if it's cool for her to be out in the streets. But she says she's an adventurer too. He tells her he's got to hit up the guild, and she's hyped to tag along, calling him her sensei. He realizes she's gonna keep following him, but he thinks she'll eventually see he ain't all that. They roll up to the guild, and the master asks Nor, "What's up?" Nor says it's complicated. They ask for a job, and since Lynn's a B rank, they can go on a goblin hunting job together. Nor freaks out, all pumped thinking he can finally get a job outside the city. He feels kind of bad about using Lynn's rank, but she's totally cool with it. The master tells them to hit up the forest of beasts and bring back goblin ears as proof. They head to the forest, and Nor asks Lynn about goblins. She says they usually munch on fruit and small animals, but they multiply fast, and when food runs out, they raid human spots. So, the guild sends adventurers to keep their numbers in check, but they don't wipe them out because they're part of the forest's ecosystem. Nor's impressed by how much she knows and feels there's even less he can teach her. They go deeper into the forest, finding it weird they haven't run into any goblins yet. Lynn senses something up ahead, so they check it out. When they get there, she says the presence vanished. They keep looking around and find a goblin's body. Lynn uses her uncovered spell, revealing a huge, ripped goblin. Nor can't believe how big it is, but tells Lynn not to sweat it since goblins are the weakest monsters. Lin spots the goblin and recognizes it as a goblin emperor, a rare subspecies of the Goblin King made through some sketchy, forbidden experiments. She knows it's a major threat, but she remembers how Nor was all excited to fight goblins. She figures he saw this coming and decides to roll with him. The goblin charges at Nor, but he blocks its attacks. It starts pushing him back, but he parries again, giving Lin a chance to strike. The goblin dodges all her spells and starts hurling trees at them, but Nor manages to bat them away. Lin sees the goblin healing too fast and tells Nor to aim for the gem on its head. The goblin keeps throwing trees, testing Nor's limits. He worries he can't protect Lin, but then she blasts the trees away with a wind spell. The goblin heals up instantly, and Nor thinks there's no way he can break the gem. But he gets an idea and tells Lin to hit him with her wind blast. She warns it can knock down a castle wall and might kill him, but he tells her to blast his sword instead. The goblin gears up to attack again, but Lin uses the wind blast, pushing Nor with insane speed. He leaps up, smashes the gem, and it flies out of the goblin's head. The goblin screams in pain, and Lin grabs the gem. Nor tells her to finish it off, and she uses her Hellfire spell to burn it down. Nor can't believe how tough that goblin was, realizing he needs more training before facing another one. Rain gets a report about the Goblin Emperor, and finds out it was way bigger than a regular Goblin King. He notes the gem was a massive monostone and suspects the Magic Empire is behind it. Back at the guild, the master is proud of Nor for finally fighting a goblin, even though it was tougher than expected. Nor gives Lin all the credit, saying he just helped, but she insists it was the other way around. Nor reflects on how adventurers usually think goblins are no big deal, but he's proud of his first hunt. He talks about how strong it was and the gem on its head, making the master think it wasn't a regular goblin, but Lin agrees with Nor and calls it a normal goblin. The master asks for the goblin's ear, but they realize they burned the whole body, so they won't get paid. Rain's hearing about some weird stuff going down in nearby cities and villages. At night, folks are catching strange sounds, and animals are coming back from the woods all freaked out. Pets are vanishing, and the forests are getting eerily quiet. Rain's thinking this might be a sign of some unnatural monsters sneaking into the kingdom. He wastes no time and orders his crew to send out search parties to every spot. He also puts everyone with detection spells to work and calls for the 6 masters from each school, thinking they might need their help. Once his team heads out, Rain loses it, throwing papers in the air, wondering if the Magic Empire really wants their dungeons so bad they'd go this far. Meanwhile, Nor and Lin are out enjoying some street food with their reward money. Fatty paid them for taking down a goblin without proof, just because it was Nor's first mission. After they're done eating, Lin tells Nor she's heading home, and he's happy to finally get some peace. Just then, Rain shows up looking for his sister. He spots Nor and quickly asks him to hit up a town in the mountains the next morning. He says Lin will join him and that he'll handle all the arrangements and pay him well. Rain doesn't spill the beans on why he's sending them, but Nor agrees because Rain seems serious. The next day, Nor hops on a carriage for the first time in his life, which is a big reason he took the job. He's loving every minute of it. Lin, on the other hand, looks pretty down, and when he asks if she's not into the scenery, she just stays quiet. He turns his focus back outside, dreaming of becoming a proper adventurer and leaving the city to travel. Lin suddenly apologizes for her brother dragging him into this, but he tells her it's cool since he's getting paid. This bums Lin out even more. That morning, Rain explained that their mission was to hit up the town of Tauros on the other side of the mountain. If nothing goes down after a while, they should head to the neighboring country, the Holy Kingdom of Mithra. He told Nor that if nothing happens, he can just treat it like a paid vacation. Now, Lin hopes nothing really happens. Her bodyguard, Inez, tells her not to stress because she's got her back. The real deal is, Rain gave Inez a top secret mission before he left. He said their kingdom is about to face some serious danger, and if things go south, Inez should take Lin and bounce to the country of Mithra. Inez was shook and asked if Lin knew about this, but Rain told her he hadn't said a word because Lin would definitely flip out. He was really worried about Lin's safety and told Inez she was the only one he could trust with something this heavy. Right now, the crew is taking a break, and Inez apologizes to Nor for dragging him into this mess. She promises to keep him safe, but he just laughs it off, saying he's good at running away if things get wild. Inez insists there won't be any need for that because she's got her shield. Nor says that he can't see anything, so Inez decides to show off her skills. She conjures up a holy shield with her special power and tells Nor that if anything goes down, he should get behind it. He's impressed and remembers how Lin said Inez is on the same level as that spear guy, Gilbert, who he fought before. Nor's heard Gilbert is strong enough to take down a dragon, and if Inez is just as tough, he thinks they're way out of his league since he struggled with just a goblin. He thanks Inez, saying she's got talent, but that takes her back to her childhood. She grew up in an orphanage, and one day, her powers just kicked in out of nowhere. Her friend was curious and tried to touch it, but got her finger cut instead. The caretakers freaked out and called the principal. Soon, a magician master, a redhead warrior, and a priest showed up. They asked Inez to show what she could do, and the magician said it was a gift from heaven, something super rare. He told young Inez that her power could be a blade that cuts through anything or a shield that blocks any attack, depending on how she used it. Inez was overwhelmed by all this, but the redhead warrior told her he'd train her to use it right. He took her in as a student, and while Inez was learning, she started keeping her distance from everyone at the orphanage, scared of hurting them. That was until she met Noor and learned his name. She'd heard that name, Noor, a lot from the redhead warrior, her master and adoptive dad. One day, while they were hunting monsters in the forest, another warrior told the redhead that a huge pack of monsters was heading their way. The redhead, lost in thought, mumbled something about wishing. Noor was there for moments like this. Inez got curious about the person her dad respected so much. But more than that, she felt jealous. Ever since she met Noor, that jealousy has only grown, and she's trying to shake it off so she can protect Lin without any distractions. Just then, Noor spots something moving through the wheat fields, leaving a weird trail behind. Lin hears him and immediately tells the carriage to stop. She uses her magic to reveal whatever's hiding out there, and it turns out to be a massive frog-bat hybrid monster. At the same time, a swarm of monsters attacks the capital, and Rain orders the warriors, swordsmen, and hunters to take out as many as they can, while the thieves help civilians get to safety. The king remembers what Emperor Derry said, warning them they'd regret not accepting his terms. He's convinced Derry is behind this attack, and Rain agrees. He thinks this could just be the beginning and that they need to brace themselves for even worse. The king asks about the 6 masters, and Rain says they're already out there dealing with powerful monsters. The redhead warrior and his crew are up against 3 goblin emperors in the forest, while the sword master is hunting down lizard monsters in the city. The hunters, magicians, healers, and thieves are all doing their part, but the king worries they might have spread their forces too thin. Meanwhile, as soon as Lin breaks the concealment spell on a black dragon, it goes after a girl standing in front of it. Lin and Inez recognize it as the Black Death Dragon, which is seriously dangerous. But without hesitation, Noor charges at it to protect the girl. He deflects the dragon's strikes with his black blade. Inez notices that the girl appeared out of nowhere just as Lin broke the spell, and Lin realizes this can only mean one thing. The girl is definitely a demon with the power to control monsters. Her brother had told her about demons before beings who look human but have powers and a nature closer to monsters. He explained that demons are a wicked race that once destroyed an entire kingdom, and because of that, humans hunted them down. Their descendants are still around, and Rain was sure they hold deep grudges against humans. Back in the present, Inez is convinced that girl is definitely a demon who brought that dragon into the city. When Lin used her spell, it probably caught the girl off guard, and when her control over the dragon slipped for just a second, it turned on her. Inez thinks they shouldn't be saving someone like that, but Noor just jumped in to help without a second thought. As she watches him still going toe-to-toe with the dragon, she wonders what's going through his head. Lin says they've got to help Noor, but Inez stops her, saying it's already too late for him. Noor's thinking the dragon's slow and weaker than the goblin he fought, and if he can just stall it, Lin will back him up. Then, the dragon blasts its poison breath at him, and Noor decides to block it instead of dodging, since the girl would get hit if he did. But that's the worst move he could have made, because the attack explodes, releasing a deadly poison into the air. Noor immediately starts coughing up black blood, and blood starts pouring from his eyes too. He realizes he's been hit by some seriously deadly poison, and it's already too late. He's losing consciousness. He collapses, and Lin tries to reach him, but Inez blocks her with a barrier, telling her she'll just get herself killed if she goes near the Black Death Dragon. Inez creates a stronger barrier using her shields, trying to keep Lin safe until she can get out of there. Lin begs her to let her help Noor, but Inez refuses, saying her top priority is protecting the princess. The dragon fires off another round of poison breath, and Inez quickly reinforces the barrier. She tells Lin to focus on surviving, but Lin still tries using her purification magic to save Noor. Her magic isn't strong enough, though, and as the black poison spreads everywhere, Inez apologizes to Noor for not being able to save him. Suddenly, a piece of the dragon's claw smashes into the barrier, and the poison cloud clears. Noor is still fighting the dragon, even though he's been poisoned badly. Seeing him like this, Inez finally gets why the redhead warrior wanted Noor around in tough situations. She thinks he's like the ultimate shield, willing to protect others even if it costs him his life, but she doesn't think he's going to make it out alive. Meanwhile, Noor keeps parrying the dragon's attacks. He even counters the poison breath again, but leaves himself open for the dragon to strike. He blocks the hit, but that's all he can do before he falls to the ground. He touches his face, sees the poison blood, and still thinks he'll somehow pull through this time. In a far-off city, there's these kids who got demons in them, so they get locked up cause folks think they're cursed. They've got the power to control monsters, but they barely get any food. This one boy is part of that crew. He catches a beating just for looking at his master, and ends up going 3 days with nothing to eat. He can also read minds, so he knows how much folks hate him, but no matter how bad they treat him, he never thinks about striking back. One day, his master rolls up with a monster, asking the boy to use it to help the nation, promising to hook him up and treat them better. The boy can't read his master's mind cause of some magic device, but he trusts him anyway. He heads out with the monster, but when his shield breaks, he loses control, and the monster knocks him aside. He thinks he's let his people down, but he's just glad he didn't hurt anyone and wishes for a better life where he's useful and gets to eat good food. The dragon gets ready to attack, and he's made his peace, but Nor steps in to protect him. The dragon spits its poison, and Nor blocks it. But the boy still gets hit. Nor sees this, uses his healing to help him, and stops the bleeding. Nor's struggling, and the dragon fires another shot. But the boy's alright. Nor keeps fighting but eventually collapses and starts coughing up blood, still thinking it's all good. In a flashback, we see Nor in the woods picking herbs. He's sorting them out at home, but there's a few he doesn't know, so he decides to make a soup with them. It tastes good, but it's poisonous, and he barely makes it through, thanks to his low-level healing spell. He flips through his book and spots the herb It's Dragon's Ruin, the same one his mom always warned him not to touch. He tries to keep up with his training, but he's struggling, so he hits himself with some healing. When he wakes up, he feels better but realizes he's starving, so he heads out to gather some more herbs. He comes across Dragon's Ruin again and reminds himself to be careful. But then a snake bites him, and he passes out from the poison. When he wakes up, he feels good and decides to eat the snake, thinking it's pretty tasty. He even gets another snake to bite him and realizes he's building up a tolerance, hoping it might give him some new skill. He starts trying other poisonous stuff, and while he doesn't get any new skills, he finds he can eat all sorts of poisonous things without much trouble. Back in the present, he's eyeing the dragon, thinking it might taste good, and figures he's adapted to the poison. He keeps dodging the dragon's attacks and eventually breaks its claws. The boy's watching him and thinks he's amazing as he pushes the dragon back. The dragon's gearing up to go all out, but Nor blocks it head-on, making the poison blow up in the dragon's face. Nor thinks it's weird there was such a big frog near the city and starts thinking it might be tasty. He checks on the boy, asking if he's out here alone. But the boy admits he was the one bringing the dragon to the city. Nor assumes the frog was meant to be food, and the boy was just delivering it fresh, using a barrier to stay hidden so he wouldn't get jumped. Nor feels bad for messing up the delivery and even offers to pay for the trouble. But the boy says it's cool. Nor is curious how the boy managed to get it that far, so the boy reveals he can control monsters. Nor just thinks that's dope and calls it a blessing from the heavens. The boy then lets it slip that he's demon folk, saying they can all control monsters, and Nor wishes he had that power to get his animals to help out with his work. The boy wonders if Nor's got a problem with him, but Nor has no idea what he's talking about. The boy explains how everyone is scared of his power, and he hates it too. Nor tells him it's a useful skill, and that he shouldn't care about what others think. The boy can't believe he could actually be helpful and starts crying, wondering if it's really possible. Nor reassures him, saying there are plenty of people who would need him. Lin rushes over, ready to treat Nor, but he says he's fine, and that he can handle poisons pretty well. However, Lin realizes it's extreme asthma, the kind that even destroys the soil. She can't believe Nor took a direct hit and is still fine. She starts thinking there's only one explanation, remembering her teacher Sane, the Sovereign of Salvation, who developed a technique that purified and healed all wounds after haunting his body and mind for 4 years. She's shocked that Nor mastered it at such a young age. Nor tells her to focus on the boy, and she instantly recognizes him as one of the demon folk. Even considering killing him, she wonders what Nor plans to do with him, but he suggests they take the boy with them. Inez tries to object, and Lin reminds her what the boy was trying to do by bringing the monster. But Nor feels bad for messing up the boy's mission by killing the frog. Inez can't believe Nor thinks the Black Death Dragon was just a frog, and Nor wonders who the boy was working for. The boy says he wasn't told, and Inez can tell from his eyes that he's just a slave. She asks if he has a home to go back to, but he mentions he was blindfolded part of the way, so he doesn't know where his city is. Nor suggests giving him a ride to the nearest city, and Lin remembers her father telling her to trust her own eyes. She feels bad for seeing him as a cursed child from the rumors, instead of a boy who needs help. Nor asks the boy for his name, and they learn it's Rollo. Lin asks Inez to bring the boy along, but Inez notes that since they are headed to Mithra, the demon folk aren't allowed to enter, and if they leave him somewhere along the way, he will struggle to survive on his own. Lin's trying to figure out what they should do when suddenly, another dude shows up. The man notices that Rollo messed up his job of delivering the frog, and since he seems to know about the delivery, Nor asks the man if he is the one who ordered Rollo to do this. The man says it wasn't him. He is just Psalm Eon, who was hired to take out Rollo and aid the progress of the mission. He asks Nor if he is the one who killed the frog, and Nor confirms that it was him. And he apologizes since he still thinks the frog was meant to be eaten. But the man tells him that he doesn't care about the frog. He was just hired to get Rollo. Nor misunderstands this to mean that the man is here to pick up Rollo, and he's not wrong. but the man's intentions are nowhere near innocent. In the next moment, the man disappears and appears behind the group. Nor parries his attack, but he is confused as to why the man attacked out of nowhere, and the man realizes that Nor isn't going to be an easy opponent to beat, so he takes a step back and calmly asks Nor if he would be willing to hand the boy over to him without a fight. Rollo is apparently worth a lot of money, but only as a corpse. So since Nor obviously isn't going to just let him kill Rollo, the man strikes again. Nor is still having a hard time understanding why the man would want to kill Rollo. So the man explains that he could also bring Rollo back alive, but his client would still murder him anyway. So why go through all that trouble? If anything, he thinks he is doing Rollo a favor by ending his life quickly. But Nor still doesn't get what's going on. The man gives up on trying to explain things and tries to jump over Nor's head to strike Rollo. But Nor manages to keep up with him and knocks the assassin back, breaking his dagger in the process. Both Nor and the assassin are moving so fast that Lin can barely keep track of them. So Inez tries to keep her close by to protect her in case they get caught in the crossfire. The assassin is starting to get really annoyed with how tough Nor is, so he pulls out some more daggers and attempts to strike at him multiple times. But Nor manages to defend against each and every one of those strikes and pushes him back against. He now sees Nor as a genuine obstacle to the success of his mission, so he is going to start seriously trying to kill him. He dashes forward at an insane speed and attempts to stab Nor in the face, but Nor once again manages to parry the attack, although it sends him flying backward. Once Nor regains his footing, he remarks that it is incredible that someone can generate that much force in a single strike with such a small knife. The assassin is surprised Nor was able to block a serious attack from him, and furthermore, he even shattered another one of the assassin's daggers, and the assassin thinks that he is really interesting. He pulls out another dagger and dashes in to attempt to overwhelm Nor. But despite his best efforts, Nor is still holding his ground. However, at this rate, Nor isn't going to be able to last much longer while protecting Rollo, as he can't keep up with the assassin's attacks based on instinct alone. The pressure from their fight is so intense that Inz had to put up a shield so that Lin won't be in danger of getting caught in the chaos. It took a while, but she finally recognizes the assassin. His fashion sense matches up with the former S-rank adventurer, the dead man Zato. A while ago, Inz walked into a meeting with all the sovereigns, and she was curious about some old documents she found. It's about a target that was declared to be officially dead, but she doesn't recall ever seeing anyone going to deal with this person. The sovereigns tell her that it's better to leave that mission alone and just declare the target dead, because actually going after him would be too much of a challenge. The target was Zato, who became an S-rank adventurer at a young age, but his actions led him to become a wanted man. However, he is too strong for any of them to be willing to risk going after him. So they decided to just leave him alone as long as he is not causing trouble in the kingdom. Gilbert was interested to learn more about Zato, since he is apparently strong enough to have the other sovereigns scared to fight him. So the wizard begins to explain the story of Zato. As a child, Zato had already mastered the art of dwarven alchemy, and by the age of 13, he had already killed his first dragon. After that, his abilities became known far across the lands, so much so that he became the apex of all heroes. However, while it sounds like Zato was the perfect hero, he never had an Uncle Ben, so he began using his powers irresponsibly. For instance, he once murdered 36 members of a merchant family, and it's almost unheard of for an adventurer to kill ordinary people. So there was a motion to strip Zato of his adventurer's license. However, while on the one hand he did kill a bunch of people, on the other hand, the dude could one-shot a dragon, so they weren't willing to risk making an enemy out of him. Ultimately, the matter of Zato's punishment was postponed, and he faced no repercussions. Zato is someone who will accept any job, no matter how evil or depraved it may be. All he cares about is the money he gets paid. In fact, he once literally destroyed an entire country at the request of a client. He killed every member of their army and then slaughtered the entire royal family. Therefore, in order to prevent any further casualties, the guild decided to pretend he has already been killed so that no one would risk attacking him again. Back with Zato. It has just lost another dagger, and he is upset because he has almost used up his entire collection in this fight against Nor. Nor apologizes for ruining all of Zato's daggers, but he says Zato is partially to blame for attacking out of nowhere like this. Zato says it's fine since he wasn't looking for an apology, but he still thinks it is really strange that his daggers keep breaking since they are all made of orchacum and dragon tusk, and they should make it practically indestructible. Furthermore, he has a lot of questions about the sword Nor is using because it is unlike anything he has ever seen before. He decides that it's better to play it safe for today, so he uses his trump card and throws his ultimate weapon into the air. As he does so, it begins to glow red, and in a flash of red light, Unlimited Blade Works has been activated. There are thousands of blades now all pointed straight at Nor, and no matter how many of them Nor manages to destroy, Zato can always just make more of them. Nor tries his best, parry all the crosses, but there are simply too many of them. so he is forced to let himself get stabbed in order to protect Rollo. Inez realizes that there are too many crosses being thrown at Noor, so she wants to go help. But before she does, she stops herself because her mission is to ensure that Lin makes it to safety. So she shouldn't leave Lin's side for any reason. However, after giving it some more thought, she decides to go help Noor after all. As Noor continues to struggle against the barrage of countless crosses, he realizes he won't be able to counter the incoming attack. So he braces himself for the inevitable stabbing. However, to his surprise, In steps in at the last second and stops the crosses with her shield. Her mission may be to protect Lin, but she also realizes that Noor is far stronger than her, and by extension, having him around would greatly improve Lin's chances of surviving any threats they come across. So she refuses to let him die here. She uses some of her shields to attack Zato, and Noor is really impressed. But while it's certainly keeping him busy, it doesn't look like any of her attacks are ever going to touch Zato. Yuta's crosses are managing to evade Inez's attacks, so she asks Noor if he can help her out a little. She can handle their defense for now, but she doesn't have the speed necessary to take down Zato, which is why she needs Noor to do it. Noor isn't sure he can handle blades that are moving this fast, but then again, he has managed to hit birds that move faster than this, so he might be able to pull it off. He picks up one of the broken claws from the frog and tells Inez that he has an idea. So on his signal, he wants her to drop the shield that she put directly in front of him. Noor gives the signal, and Inez drops some of the shields to give him a clearing to attack. With a couple of dragon scales in his hand, Noor activates his physical enhancement and stone throw abilities, and the combination basically turns his arm into an anti-aircraft missile launcher as the claw fragments destroy all the crosses headed their way. Noor still has plenty of ammunition, so as he reloads, he asks Inez to drop the shield again, and he proceeds to destroy even more of Zato's crosses. It looks like they are making steady progress against him. But while she wasn't paying attention, Zato sneaks up behind Inez and nearly stabs her straight in the eye. But at the last second, Noor successfully parries the attack, breaking yet another one of Zato's daggers. That attack looked like it was really close, but for Noor it was barely a challenge to block it. Zato can't believe Noor is able to react to his attacks that quickly, and that he managed to break a dagger made of adamantite. Noor once again apologizes for destroying such a valuable dagger, but it's still Zato's fault for attacking first. Zato says he doesn't need an apology, but he needs to make up for all the money he lost on those destroyed daggers. He tries attacking Noor again, but Noor successfully blocks and breaks another dagger. Zato asks Noor how he keeps managing to see through all his attacks, but Noor can't really explain his methods. He just kind of knows how to react. Zato feels like there has to be some secret behind Noor's power, but he will have to find out some other day because for now he's done. After all the blades Noor destroyed, Zato is going to have to go through a lot of effort to recover the mithril needed to replace them all, and he doesn't want to lose any more blades, so he's going to give up on collecting the reward for Rollo. He was also going to head over to the kingdom since he heard there's something interesting going on over there, but he put a hold on that as well. Inez asks him what he means by something interesting at the kingdom, but Zato doesn't know the details. He just knows that it is going to be really extravagant. He calls over to Rollo and tells him that he is lucky Noor is here because no matter what kind of attack he tries, Noor is always one step ahead of him. He even tries going for one last sneak attack, but predictably Noor blocks it with ease. Zato won't be able to complete his mission while Noor is around, so he takes a step back and just teleports away with his magic. Noor breathes a sigh of relief now that Zato is gone. But Lin has some concerns about the event that is apparently taking place at the capital. Noor asks if she wants to head back to the capital if she is so curious about what's going on. But as soon as he mentions the royal capital, Rollo starts to shiver in fear. Before he was tasked with transporting the Black Death Dragon, he heard his captors talking about how a terrifying monster was going to be sent to the capital, one that would make the Black Death Dragon look like a tiny frog. Hearing this, Lin says they need to hurry back to the capital immediately because the situation is more dire than she had initially thought it was. She asks Noor if he is willing to come with her back to the capital, and Noor is fine with it. But Inez tells them that they can't go. She's about to tell Lin about the order she got from Rain, but Lin already knows about it. Rain had told her that she should escape with Lin if anything ever happened in the capital. Lin didn't hear it from him directly, but she knows how Rain thinks, so she is well aware of what he would want. But she can't accept the plan for her to be the only one to escape. That means the kingdom would still be in danger while she escaped, and she can't let something like that happen. This is the exact same thing that happened to the demon folk when their homeland was destroyed. So if Lin doesn't do anything now, it will surely suffer the same fate. Inez eventually agrees to go back, but she wants Lin to promise not to leave her side. Rollo says he will go too since he feels partially responsible for the incident, so he wants to help resolve it. Noor pats Rollo on the head for being so responsible, and Lin notices the profound look on Noor's face, so she thinks he must be having a deep moment of self-reflection. But in reality, he is just regretting the fact that he never got to taste the poison frog. Back at the capital, the city lies in ruins, but thanks to the efforts of the 6 sovereigns, they have managed to hold their ground. The problem now is that Rain doesn't know where the next attack will be coming from. It could be from the north, the south, or maybe even above, but according to the reports, there have been no sightings of flying beasts nearby. That may be what the reports say, but Rain notices something up in the sky, so he casts an uncover spell, and to his horror, he finds a dragon looming over the city, and it's not just any dragon either, it's a dragon of calamity. The story rewinds, and we see Nora's pops dropping some knowledge on him about dragon slayers. He breaks it down, saying when a dragon's up to no good, it's called an evil dragon. And if you're bold enough to take one out, you're dubbed a dragon slayer. Pops goes on to explain how every piece of a dragon from its claws and fangs to its bones and everything else is pure gold. They use that stuff to craft weapons and whip up some powerful medicine. That's how the land gets rich. And Nor pipes up, saying he wants to be a dragon slayer too, but Pops keeps it real, telling him it's not gonna be a walk in the park. Some of these dragons have been around for like 1,000 years, and when they move, the ground shakes. One swipe of their tail can flatten mountains. Pops even throws in a story about how this continent almost got wrecked by a dragon's rage long ago. He warns Nor that someone as small as him would get swallowed whole. But Nor is still dreaming about becoming a dragon slayer one day. Fast forward to the present, and Nor's in a carriage, feeling something off in the distance, but no one else is catching it. Nor points it out, and Lin spots it. It's the dragon of calamity. Next thing you know, the folks in the capital are frozen with fear as the dragon soars above them. And Rain's thinking the Empire has no clue about the beast they've let loose. Dal Ken says, it's only been 150 years since it went to sleep. It should still be out cold, but Rain catches on that Mitra's woken it up. He's shook that they'd unleash this kind of disaster just over some beef, and the dragon lets out a roar. Rain orders Dal Ken to get everyone at the evac spot out of the city ASAP, and he's not playing. He tells him to drag out anyone who tries to stay or hold onto their stuff. The people start moving out, and Mayan spots that the 6 sovereigns are scattered, and all the escape routes are jammed up. She's thinking this is a lost cause. Meanwhile, the 6 sovereigns are out here battling monsters all over the city and beyond, with no time to worry about the dragon. The king's up in his castle, eyeing the dragon, and Gilbert's urging him to bounce to safety. But the king's not budging. His duty is to protect his people. He tells Gilbert to lead the evacuees. Later, Inez is peeping the dragon through some binoculars, thinking the whole area is about to get wrecked now that the dragon's here. She says the evacuation should be happening right now, and Lin's sure her dad's gonna stay behind if that's the case. She knows deep down that even her dad doesn't stand a chance against that beast, and she's hoping he's smart enough to bail. Nor, on the other hand, is checking out the dragon, all curious and hyped to finally see one up close. Rollo's side-eyeing him, thinking it's weird since Nor just faced off with the Black Dragon of Death. Then Nor remembers that Lin's dad and brother are still in town. She confirms it, saying it's too late to save them. But Nor isn't giving up. He tells her he can still rescue them if he hustles. Lin's caught off guard, and Nor explains that they can make it if they use the same trick they did against the goblin. Lin clicks, realizing he's talking about her wind blast, but she knows the impact's gonna be wild. Nor's confident, saying his sword can handle whatever, and he feels like the city's done a lot for him, so he wants to return the favor. He figures he might just pull it off if it's just about getting her family out. And this sparks some hope in Lin. She can't believe she was about to give up without even trying. Even though Wind Blast isn't a spell meant for people, she knows Nor doesn't play by the world's usual rules. She decides not to hesitate and agrees to roll with his plan. Meanwhile, back in the capital, the king's replaying a conversation with Emperor Derry. Derry had flexed, saying he could wipe out the king's tiny nation no sweat, but the king still refused to hand over the Dungeon of the Lost. Derry accused him of wasting the power he's got, claiming his nation's wisdom could turn it into something that could dominate the world. But the king clapped back, saying Derry's wisdom should have warned him not to mess with powers beyond his grasp. Derry fired back, calling the king a coward who didn't deserve the throne. Now, the king realizes Derry's been obsessed with getting his hands on the Dungeon of the Lost, willing to go to any lengths to do it. The king heads to the top of the castle, thinking about his daughter and hoping she's safe. He's shocked that he's worrying about her instead of his country in a moment like this, and admits that Derry might have been right about him. Maybe he really doesn't deserve to wear the crown, and he says a sword probably suits him better. He apologizes to all his people for dragging them along on his messed up mission. He knows he can't undo his mistakes, but he's dead set on at least taking out one of the dragon's eyes. Outside the capital, Inez sets up a cylinder using her shields and asks Nor to step up in front of it. Nor does, thinking this feels different from last time. Then Lin stacks 7 spells on the barrier to amp up her spell's power. And suddenly, Nor isn't so sure about getting hit by this. Lin doesn't catch on, and she tells him to brace himself because the impact's gonna be way stronger than before. She fires off her Wind Blast spell, and when it's over, Nor's nowhere to be found. Rollo's doubting if Nor could survive something like that. Meanwhile, the dragon rolls up on the king, getting ready to unleash its breath. The prince realizes it's the same move that wiped out the whole continent, and the king knows he won't even be able to take out one of the dragon's eyes. He makes his peace with death, grabs a dagger, and hopes to show the dragon just how tough humans can be. The seven sovereigns spot that the king's holding the blasting sword, pouring all his mana into it for one last strike. They realize he's even using his life force, but before the king can attack, Nor shows up and parries the dragon's face, throwing off its aim. Everyone's stunned, and the dragon crashes to the ground. It looks down, seeing its scales covered in dirt, and then spots Nor. The dragon's in shock that a mere human would dare to step up to it. It growls, explaining that the world runs on the simple rule of the strong taking down the weak. It's surprised that Nor would challenge that order, and it roars, saying it won't let this slide. The dragon swings its tail at Nor, but Nor blocks it again, knocking the dragon down once more. Nor's thinking he was a goner just now, remembering how after Lin blasted him with her spell, he blacked out for a second. His sword then slammed into something, snapping him back to reality. He used a physical boost to run and let the wind blast carry him, and he couldn't stop. Even when he hit the city wall, he had to jump the wall, and he managed it, thanks to the boost from Lin's spell. His jump took him way further than he expected, and he was about to crash into the dragon, so he parried its breath attack just to save himself. Back in the present, he's relieved he made it and starts healing himself, thinking he's definitely gonna ask Lin not to pull that stunt again. He realizes the dragon's breath was surprisingly easy to shake off. At first, he was tripping over the dragon's size, but after getting hit with Lin's magic, he can't even feel scared anymore. The dragon gets back up, and Nor's thinking that as he is now, he might actually be able to throw down with this beast. Meanwhile, Lin and the crew roll into town, and Inez tells Lin they've got to grab the king and bounce while Nor keeps the dragon occupied. Rollo suddenly warns them to watch out for some rubble heading their way. Inez barely manages to shield them, but they get knocked off their horses. Inez keeps her barrier up, telling Lin to stay behind her, and then Lin spots 3 goblin emperors up ahead. She notices they're smaller than the one she and Nor face together, but she knows they're still tough. She's thinking about how to handle them, wondering what Nor would do in this situation. Then she tells Inez there's no need to trip, they're just goblins. Inez agrees, saying compared to the Dragon of Calamity, these goblins are nothing. They decide to stay cool and take care of the goblin emperors. The monsters charge at them, ready to attack, but Lin fires some ice lances at them, which don't do much. Then, at the last second, Rollo commands them to stop, giving Lin an opening to cast a spell and freeze the monsters. Inez then shapes her shield into a divine sword and takes out the monsters in one clean sweep. Lin's impressed, thinking Inez really lives up to the title of the divine sword. And she's also surprised that Rollo managed to stop those monsters with just one command. She can't believe the demon folk have this kind of power, and she decides to give it her all, inspired by the young boy finding his courage. Meanwhile, Nor keeps deflecting the dragon's attacks, and the dragon's getting frustrated. We see that Nor's parries are actually messing up the dragon's claws and scales, which shocks the dragon since they're supposed to be unbreakable. Nor's just as surprised that his sword isn't even getting scratched, no matter how hard he goes at it. He's thinking, what is this thing? But then he decides it doesn't really matter, as long as he can win with it. The dragon starts to see Nor as a legit threat and takes to the sky. It charges up its breath to blast Nor, but Nor deflects it again, leaving everyone including the dragon stunned. The dragon roars in frustration, and Rollo explains that it's mad because it's recognized Nor as its rival, but Nor hasn't done the same. The king chimes in, saying dragons are proud creatures, and the Dragon of Calamity had full confidence in its power. But now it's starting to doubt itself. The dragon, now thinking it was the weak one all along, goes in for one last attack, but Nor parries again and slices off one of the dragon's claws. The dragon then bows down to Nor, calming its rage. Seeing this, Rollo says that this is a sign of submission, and Nor is wondering what's happening. He spots the dragon's claw lying next to him, and remembers his dad saying dragon parts are valuable, they can be used for making weapons, medicine, and bringing wealth to the land. He also recalls that those who take down an evil dragon are called dragon slayers, but seeing the defeated look in the dragon's eyes, he lowers his weapon. Nor sits down and says, I'm not cut out to be a hero. Rollo notices the dragon doesn't want to fight anymore, and Lin and the others approach Nor. Then we see Nor thanks Rollo for calming down the dragon, but Rollo insists he didn't do anything. Nor starts wondering why the dragon suddenly stopped fighting. He asks Rollo to send it home, but Inez is ready to finish it off for good. Lin sides with Nor and tells Rollo to give it a shot and send the dragon home. Rollo isn't too sure he can pull it off, but he steps up and tries to communicate with the dragon. Turns out, the dragon's ready to follow orders from whoever its master is, and Nor is amazed that Rollo can actually control it. He asks Rollo to send it home and tell it not to cause any more damage. The dragon agrees, takes off, but just when it seems like things are wrapping up, an energy blast nails the dragon, and it crashes down. We see Derry in the distance, watching it all go down, and he reveals the dragon was his pawn. Darius, pissed the capital is still standing, but he decides it doesn't matter as he calls in his army. His plan was for the dragon to tear up the capital, then have his magic soldiers and cannons wipe out what's left, but a dude named Randy tries to warn him that it's a bad move. Darius, not having it though, kicks Randy aside and brags that their mage tech is unstoppable. Darius already writing history in his head, planning to blame the kingdom's greed and dungeon mismanagement for their downfall, while painting the Empire as the saviors stepping in to free the people from their useless king. Meanwhile, Nor and the crew head toward the dragon, but spot the Empire's army too. Darius sees them and recognizes Lynn and Inez. He knows Inez has a rep with her divine shield, but he figures she's no match for his cannon, so he orders his men to fire. Inez tells Lynn to fall back, and as the blast comes at her, she realizes she can't block it, but Nor jumps in front and deflects it. Darius, confused, wondering what just happened, and orders his men to fire again. Nor is trying to figure out why the Empire's army is even there, and Inez tells him they're planning to destroy the kingdom. Lynn sees they're seriously outnumbered, even with their army, and Inez tells her they need to fall back. The next attack hits, and Inez blocks it with her shield. Darius told to get to safety, so he orders them to wrap it up quickly. Nor realizes they're in deep trouble, so he decides to create a distraction to give the others a chance to escape. He knows he's not the best fighter, but he's confident in his ability to make a run for it. He remembers how he used to gather honey and always ended up getting chased by bees. If he could outrun bees, he figures he can outrun this army if he goes all out. Lynn decides to trust him, telling him she's got his back. He thinks she's about to boost him, but instead, she hits him with a wind blast that sends him flying toward the army. He parries the attacks coming at him and realizes he can't stop now, so he charges straight through, deflecting everything in his path. Swords and shields go flying into the sky. Darius is stunned, watching as the swords come back down, stabbing his men, while the shields crush them. Nor then sends the siege towers crashing down. He keeps the chaos going, and Darius is in complete shock. Nor suddenly flies past him, and Darius trying to figure out who this guy is. He starts thinking Nor's there to kill him, but then he remembers his gear is made from orichalcum. But Nor isn't even interested in Darius, he just blows past him and takes out the magic cannons, which crash down next to Darius. Darius can't believe he's losing, especially with all his tech and troops. Nor shows up in front of him, and Darius recognizes the black blade, wondering how Nor can even wield it. He thinks Nor is keeping him alive to mess with his head, and in total panic, Darius wets himself and takes off running. We see the whole fight go down from Nor's side, and after blocking the soldiers' weapons, he felt mad relieved to finally catch a break. Then out of nowhere, he spots the king behind him. At first glance, Nor figured the dude was some regular old guy in shiny armor. He couldn't wrap his head around why a dude that old would even be out here on the battlefield. Even the king's horse was decked out in flashy gear, but to Nor, there was nothing special about him. That's when he noticed the weapons he'd just blocked falling back to the ground. Snapping out of his thoughts, he rushed to block the weapons again before the soldiers could grab him up. He knew he had to stay sharp and keep blocking, and then he saw these siege towers. Without knowing what they were, he decided to handle them too. After dealing with the weapons, Nor glanced back at the king, still wondering who this old man really was. But he couldn't afford to rest too long. He knew those soldiers would be on their weapons if he slipped. So, he blocked them again, then took a breather by the king. Meanwhile, the king was looking at Nor like he'd seen him somewhere before. Nor was thinking, does this old dude know me? He started walking toward the king, convinced they'd never crossed paths. But the king was shook. The king pulled out his sword, ready to fight, but Nor didn't even bother blocking it. He wasn't sweating the old man like that. He slid past him and went on to block some magic cannons too. Those things dropped right next to the king, and Nor just kept blocking whatever he could spot. Nor figured the old man was bound to hurt himself staying out there on the battlefield, so he went back to him again. That's when the king asked him, "Why haven't you killed me yet?" It clicked for Nor. The king thought he was here to take him out. Nor couldn't really blame him either. He was out here with a sword in his hand, so he decided to let the king know it wasn't like that. He put down his weapon and tried to tell the king not to worry, but he was too winded to get the words out. Instead, he threw the king a smile, hoping it would calm him down, but the king misunderstood that smile, thought it was some kind of threat, and took off on his horse in a panic. Nor starts feeling the wear and tear from all that fast movement across the battlefield, and the next thing he knows, he's coughing up blood. The soldiers from Mitra surround him, and he's thinking I pushed it too far. He knows there's no way his low-level healing spell is gonna fix this much exhaustion, and the soldiers keep closing in. He starts thinking this might be it for him. He's about to pass out, and all he can hope for is that Lynn and the crew get away safe. But then, out of nowhere, the soldiers get hit by a long-range attack, and Nor recognizes that move it's Mayan's skill. Gilbert jumps in next, dropping his Dragrave skill, taking out the soldiers crowding Nor. Nor's happy to see him, but his brain's too foggy to remember dude's name right. Gilbert, shocked by the destruction Nor left behind, is joined by Sig. Sig apologizes for being late, but Nor knows who he is, even if Sig doesn't recognize him. Nor thanks him for holding things down so far, and Sig reassures him they'll finish the job. Gilbert and Sig then hit the battlefield, cutting down any soldiers in their way. Nor watches, thinking this is the kind of swordsman power he's always wanted. Sane, seeing Sig's wild fighting, can't believe he's going off like this after being told to chill out. Oaken feels like keeping things calm is impossible with so many enemies around, but Sane explains they can't get any info out of dead bodies. Sane says it's easier to get people to talk when they're alive, and you can always keep cutting off limbs during torture to get what you need. Oaken is shocked, but Sane laughs it off, saying he's just playing. Then, Sane mentions Oaken's mages should be pulling up soon, so it's time to gear up. A squad of mages shows up, and Oaken casts Earthbind to trap the soldiers to the ground. Dandog's forces charge in, and Sane notices that Oaken's having the time of his life. Oaken, loving the fight, decides it's time to wrap it up. He traps the soldiers in a massive stone cage, and Sane realizes it's his turn to step in. He makes it his mission to save the survivors and give them a shot at turning things around. Nor is surprised when he sees that all the instructors who used to teach him are there, and he's happy to see them again. Some of the instructors recognize Nor too, and afterward, Lin heals him. He thanks her, and she tells him to rest a little longer, but he says he's fine now. He starts thinking about how hungry he is, and then Sig tells everyone that a commanding officer confessed under Sane's interrogation, saying that Mitra doesn't have any more troops. They threw everything they had at them, but their emperor seems to have escaped. Oaken is surprised that the old emperor joined the battle, and he thinks it was a foolish move for someone who calls himself a wise ruler. He wonders if the old man is losing his mind, and Nor realizes they're talking about the man in the shining armor. Oaken is surprised Nor knows him, and Nor explains that he met him a while ago, and he was wearing shining armor. Even his horse had the same armor, and they were hard to miss. Oaken realizes that the armor must have been orichalcum, and he explains that it's a high-grade material that supports a wide range of skills. He thinks it makes sense that the emperor escaped so quickly if his horse had that armor, and Sig mentions they won't be able to go after him if he crosses the border. Sig explains that there's a fortress and a bridge over a ravine there, and Oaken thinks they have no chance of catching up to him using normal means. Oaken says it might be possible if they could fly, and Nor suggests they might be able to do that. Everyone is shocked to hear this, and Nor mentions it would only be possible if that creature is still alive. Afterward, they head to the place where the dragon fell, and both Oaken and Sane are amazed to see such a magnificent creature up close. Sane thinks it's the first time he's been asked to heal something so big. He starts healing the dragon, managing to restore its body, but it takes a little more time to heal its internal injuries. While healing up, Sane tells Nor he's leveled up a lot, and Oaken's trippin' when he finds out this dude is Nor. Nor says it's been a minute since he's seen both of them too, and he's low-key shocked Oaken's still kickin'. Oaken feels some type of way about that, and he flexes, saying he plans on living another 100 years. Nor's thinking he's gotta be jockin', but the old man's dead serious. Then he asks Nor if he's really cool with healing this beast, and Nor tells him to chill cause they got Rollo with them. Oaken checks with Rollo, asking if he's sure he can handle it, but Rollo's shaky with it, which gets Oaken worried. Nor calms him down, saying it's all good, and that's when the dragon wakes up. Nor tells Rollo to start vibing with it, and the dragon lets out a big roar. Nor peeps that it's mad, and Rollo's shook that Nor can read it so well. Nor says growing up in the mountains taught him to pick up on the dragon's mood, and Rollo breaks it down that the dragon wants revenge. It's waiting for Nor to give the word, and Oaken's caught off guard by how much control Rollo has over the dragon. Rollo tries to clear it up, saying the dragon sees Nor as its master, not him. But before he can finish, the dragon roars again, and Rollo says it's ready to roll out. Nor tells everybody who's catching a ride to gear up, and Lin and Inez step forward. Nor's surprised they're coming too, and they explain that Rollo has to ride since he's the only one who can talk to the dragon, and they're gonna have his back. Lin asks if Nor's not rolling with them, and Nor really ain't feelin' it cause he's scared of heights. But he knows this whole thing was his idea, so he can't bail now. He tells Lin he's down to go, and Lin's hyped, saying it'll be like having the strength of 100 men. Sane chimes in, saying he's coming too since he's gotta watch his patient till the end, and then Karu shows up. Karu's trainer roll with them too, and Nor is pumped to see another one of his teachers. Karu says they're gonna need a stealth move to ride something that huge, and he's the one who's got it covered. Oaken wants to roll with them too, but Sane tells him to stay back and watch over his stone cage, so he has no choice but to hang back. King Clays and his son show up next, and Lin's relieved to see they're both safe. They're just as glad to see she's okay, too. Inez then asks Rain to punish her since she went against his orders. Rain tells her it's cool, saying it was his bad for giving such a dumb order in the first place. He's just happy she made it back, and he adds that he'll be riding the dragon too since they'll need someone to negotiate. They all hop on the dragon, and the king puts Rain in charge of making the calls, hoping Nor will watch over his kids. Nor agrees to help out, and the king apologizes for asking so much of him. Rollo then tells the dragon to take off, and it soars into the sky. Meanwhile, Dandalg and Sig spot the dragon flying, and Dandalg asks Sig if he's cool with not saying anything to Nor after finally finding him after all this time. Sig says he's fine with it, adding that Nor never really needed them to play any part in his life. He thinks the idea of taking Nor in and raising him was ridiculous, and Dandalg agrees. As Nor is a hero straight out of Legends, Sig then recalls seeing the army's weapons flying from afar and admits he's ashamed of his own laziness. He realizes he shouldn't have wasted time thinking he could train others and decides to retrain himself instead. Dandalg thinks it's funny how Sig seems pretty happy for a guy who's ashamed, and Sig says it's normal, considering the show Nor just put on for them. Dandalg nods in agreement. We then see Nor and the crew looking for Derry, but they can't seem to find him. They wonder if he's already crossed the border and notice a bridge up ahead. Caro explains that the land beyond that bridge is under the Empire's control, and he warns them not to rush in without thinking. He suggests they turn back and leaves the final decision to Rain. Before Rain can make up his mind, Lynn spots something moving fast on the bridge, and they realize it's Derry. Caro notices they're getting close to the capital's defenses, and if they step into that territory, there's no way they're making it out in one piece. He explains that they're hidden for now, but the magic that's keeping them covered is gonna wear off as soon as they realize they're there. Rain's aware of this, but he's dead set on not letting the Emperor slip away. He figures Mitra has access to some serious magical tools, and if they let him escape, he's gonna use those to boost their military power. Rain's not about to give Derry the chance to make that happen. Inez then asks Rain and Lynn if she can just wipe out the whole area. When Lynn hears this, she thinks Inez must be pissed after what went down in the capital. Inez suggests it'd be smart to take out the fort's defenses ahead while they've still got the chance. Rain gives her the go-ahead, and Inez unleashes her divine sword on the fort. With Caro's help, she wipes out the entire place in seconds, thinking this should secure their way out. Rain's pleased with the outcome and tells Lynn that what they do next is going to decide the war's direction. He mentions they're going to keep chasing the Emperor until he hits the capital, then asks if she's ready for it. Lynn's cool with it and figures everyone here's packing power way beyond the norm. She knows she's got nothing to worry about as long as they're around, and she's even more confident with Nor on their side. She thinks he's probably planning something big as they speak. But then we see that Nor's so scared of heights that he's passed out. When the Emperor finally makes it back to the fort, thinking he's safe now, that fear he's been carrying turns into straight up anger, remembering how bad he got clowned. As he's walking past his officials, they hit him with, "Why you covered in mud and smelling like piss?" The Emperor starts blaming all his soldiers for not being able to win, even with all that high-tech gear they got. Before he can finish going off, one of the officials spots something out the window. The Emperor looks up, and that terror creeps right back in as he sees the Dragon of Calamity heading straight for the Empire. He's confused though, thinking, how's this thing still alive? That laser beam should have finished it. Then it hits him, it must be Saint Sane who brought the dragon back. But even if they revived it, there's no way it should be coming after him unless someone's controlling it. That's when he turns around and asks where the beast tamer he hired is. The official tells him Master Lude already bounced, and the Emperor starts thinking Lude betrayed him. He throws a fit, and Randius steps in, trying to calm him down because all that yelling won't solve anything. But the Emperor ain't trying to hear it. He flips out on Randius, telling him to stop being useless and do something to save the Empire. Randius agrees, but the look on his face says he's done with the Emperor's nonsense. While all this is happening, the Emperor orders the rest of them to get Kronos ready. He wants to use it to blast the dragon out of the sky. The officials try to talk him out of it, saying Kronos is still in the testing phase, and if they fire it now, it might wipe out a big part of the city too. The Emperor doesn't care though. He kicks one of them across the room and argues that they don't have many options left either way. The dragon's gonna wreck the city if they don't do something. So he says not to stress about collateral damage, and if they have to, they can use the mana targeting system to hit it right. The officials do what they're told, and the whole city goes dark as Kronos locks onto the dragon's mana signature. The Emperor's feeling himself, thinking this dragon's done for, cause this laser is the most powerful weapon his empire ever built. The laser fires off, heading straight for the dragon. But then, out of nowhere, something on the dragon's head deflects the laser, knocking it off course. The Emperor's in shock, can't believe what's happening. And now, since they used the mana tracking settings, the laser's aiming right for the Empire's mana generators. Without those, the Empire's wide open with no defense. The Emperor, true to form, starts blaming the officials, even though he's the one who gave the order to fire. But that's the last straw for the officials. They all quit right then and there, fed up with his nonsense. The Emperor's left standing alone, watching as everything he built burns down around him. A few moments before all this, the group was riding in on the dragon, and Nor suddenly felt something coming. This new laser was way stronger than the last one, and there wasn't enough time to dodge it. So, Nor jumped out front and deflected the blast. He pulled it off, but since he can't fly, he ended up crashing right into the Emperor's castle. At that same moment, the Emperor is surrounded by Randius and a few knights who are over dealing with him. The Emperor asks what Randius thinks he's doing, and Randius calmly tells him he's gonna save the Empire by taking the Emperor out. The Emperor starts yelling for help, but nobody's left who will listen to him. Looks like it's the end for him, but right before Randius can cut him down, Nor crashes through the ceiling. Nor's surprised he got so lucky, landing smack in the middle of the Emperor's throne room. Randius, sword raised, asks Nor straight up, "You trying to protect this clown?" Nor ain't worried about protecting the Emperor, but he also knows it ain't right for these knights to straight up murder him. One of the knights tries to pop the Emperor with a gunshot, but Nor deflects the shot and gently lays the Emperor's head down so he doesn't get hurt. Randius and his crew realize Nor's got serious skills, so they rush him all at once, but Nor handles them like it's nothing, deflecting every attack with ease. Randius starts talking about how the Emperor's ruined the Empire, and the only way to make things right is for him to die. One of the knights even throws a bomb, trying to finish the Emperor off. Nor sees it coming and gently kicks the Emperor out of the way, making sure his body lands against the wall without injury. As the Emperor is checking on the neighbors, Nor asks why the knights are trying to kill him. One of the knights points out that Nor has done more damage to the Emperor than they have so far, but Randius keeps pushing the point, saying the Emperor has to die. He throws more bombs, but Nor stays ahead of it, grabbing the Emperor's leg and gently placing him on the floor. Nor suggests they throw the Emperor in prison and let him die naturally since he's already old, but Randius shuts that down, saying they can't afford to wait. The enemy has already invaded, and they're coming with the Dragon of Calamity. He thinks killing the Emperor now will send a message that the fight is over. Suddenly, a voice interrupts, saying that killing the Emperor isn't necessary. He can't suffer for his crimes if he's already dead. It's Rain, who's just arrived with the rest of the crew. He thanks Nor for stepping in but says he's gonna take it from here. Rain asks Lin to heal Nor, figuring he might be hurt from that crash earlier. Nor and Lin dip out of the throne room to let Rain handle the situation. Rain turns to the knights and tells them straight up, they don't need to worry, he's got no beef with them, and nobody's coming after them. But as for the Emperor, his luck's run out. The Emperor begs Rain to spare him, and Rain surprises everybody by agreeing, but he's got some heavy conditions. After all the chaos the Emperor caused, people getting crushed under rubble, burned alive, or ripped apart by beasts, Rain says he'll forgive him, but only if the Emperor is willing to go through the same pain he made others suffer. Rain also says he's ready to kick off peace talks between nations to discuss reparations and bring this war to an end. Rain throws it out there, asking if anyone's got an issue with the plan. Not a single person speaks up for the Emperor, so it's settled the Emperor's gotta feel all the pain he put on others. The Emperor's confused, thinking there's no way he can survive that kind of torture. But Rain calmly explains that no matter how many times his bones get shattered or his guts get sliced open, Saint Sane will be there to heal him right back up so they can continue the process. And even if he passes out from the pain, Kuru's got ways to snap him right back into consciousness. Hearing this, the Emperor is even more terrified than before, straight up pissing himself out of fear. Rain makes it clear, though, that he doesn't take pleasure in torturing people. He just needs the Emperor to fully grasp the pain he put all those innocent people through over a petty grudge. Rain even says this punishment is him going easy on the Emperor. Meanwhile, outside, Nor's feeling much better after getting healed by Lin. But as he looks out over the Empire, he feels guilty about all the damage he caused when he deflected that laser. Lin tells him not to trip, reminding him he only did what he had to do to keep them from getting hit by the laser. Plus, nobody died from the damage. Those lasers only hit the Empire's mana generators, and those spots were packed with mana, so nobody was nearby when they got blown up. That said, Lin points out the destruction is still gonna hit people's lives hard in the long run. Right then, Rain, Kuru, and Sane roll up, saying they've worked everything out. From now on, the Empire and the Kingdom are shifting gears toward post-war rebuilding. Nor is surprised the war's already wrapped up when it felt like it barely even started. So he asks what ended up happening to the Emperor. Rain breaks it down, letting everyone know the Emperor stepped down. His grandkid's probably gonna be the new ruler, but since the kid's only 10, a guardian's gonna hold things down until he's old enough to take charge. It's been decided the knights will be in control for now. Right after Rain finishes explaining, the knights show up, and the first thing Randius does is apologize to Nor for going after him earlier. Randius says he's willing to do whatever it takes to make up for it, but Nor brushes it off, telling him it's all good, no need to sweat it. Randius feels relieved Nor is not holding a grudge. As a goodwill gesture, he tells Nor that if he ever needs help, Randius and the knights will be there, no questions asked. Nor waves it off, saying there's no need for that, and if anything, he should be the one apologizing for all the damage to the city. Randius reassures him, saying the damage wasn't Nor's fault, it was the old Emperor's doing, and luckily, no one was killed or injured from the blasts. They just need to rebuild. He also points out that what the Empire did to the kingdom was way worse in comparison. But Nor, being who he is, still offers to help with the cleanup, even if it's just moving rubble around. The dragon, though, is getting impatient, so everyone hops on its back and heads back to the kingdom. Nor, of course, still hates flying, but they don't have much of a choice. When they get back, they're greeted by the king, who immediately apologizes to Rain for making him handle all the peace talks by himself. The king wants to hear all the details later, but first, he insists on thanking their savior. Rain agrees, saying Noor basically saved the whole capital on his own and deserves a proper reward. Noor, being humble as ever, cuts them off and says he doesn't need anything. But the king isn't having it. He knows Noor isn't about material things, but after saving the entire country, there's no way he's letting Noor leave without some kind of reward. Noor gets that it's normal to get a reward after what he did, but he can't think of anything he really wants for himself. Then, he glances down at Rollo and says there is one thing he'd like the king to do for him. The king is glad to finally hear Noor make a request, so he asks what it is. Noor tells him that he wants Rollo, a demon folk kid with no home after being abandoned, to be taken care of. Noor explains that Rollo deserves to live in the capital as a regular citizen. Noor had thought about taking Rollo in himself, but he lives too simple a life. Rollo would be way better off being looked after by a family with means. Noor suggests that if the king could hook Rollo up with some land and a home, that would be enough. The king understands Noor's request. But here's the problem. The holy theocracy of Mitra has labeled all demon folk as enemies. If the king accepts Rollo as a citizen, it's gonna stir up trouble with Mitra. The king's about to ask Noor if he can think of something else, but Noor cuts him off, saying he doesn't need anything else but to make sure Rollo's safe. Noor tells him that if he's planning on offering something different, the king should use those resources for rebuilding the kingdom instead. The king, surprised by Noor's persistence, can't help but laugh. Rollo, looking up at Noor, flashes back to when he almost got killed by that frog dragon. Back then, he hoped for a better life, one where he wouldn't have to suffer anymore, maybe even have a shot at eating good food. He never thought that dream would come true. Later, Rollo wakes up in a warm bed. He soon finds himself sitting at a dinner table with Anise, who tells him that he's gonna stay with her for now. Rollo doesn't know what to say, so Anise nudges him, telling him to hurry up and eat before the food gets cold. He's shocked he never imagined all of this was for him. For the first time in his life, he's about to eat something that isn't rotten. As he takes his first bite, tears start to roll down his face, and he smiles, saying the food is delicious while he cries. While the rebuilding and rescue efforts are still going on, Noor takes a walk through the neighborhood he used to clean. He's shocked by how much damage has been done. He wonders if the folks who live here made it out okay. As he heads toward the guild, he feels some relief seeing the building is still standing. Just as he's about to take another step, he spots the guild sign right at his feet. This is the first time he's actually gotten a good look at it. He never noticed the drawing of an adventurer on it before. He thinks back to how he couldn't sign up as an adventurer, since after 3 months of training at each school, he could only pick up the basics. And never in a million years did he think he'd be seeing his old instructors again after 15 years. When Noor first went to the swordsman training school, he met Sig and asked to train as a swordsman. Sig asked if Noor had permission to be there, so Noor, all excited, pulls out the permission slip from the guild. Noor was younger than the other students, but since he had permission, Sig didn't see any problem training him, as long as Noor was sure he could handle the tough training ahead. On the first day, Sig had the students swinging their swords late into the night until they were completely worn out. As Sig passed Noor, he thought the kid wouldn't last more than 3 days, seeing how tired he looked after just one. But Sig was wrong. 10 days later, Noor was still pushing through, not slowing down at all. When the time came for their first real training exercise, Sig set up a huge wrecking ball and told the students to give it their best shot at blocking it. The first guy jumps out of the way, giving up as soon as the wrecking ball swings his way. Sig calls for the next person, and Noor steps up. When the wrecking ball comes at him, he doesn't flinch. He blocks it with all he's got. He pulls it off, but in the process, breaks his shoulder and drops his sword. Sig reminds Noor that a swordsman should never lose their sword, even if they're injured. But to his surprise, Noor fights through the pain, picks up his sword with his other arm, and gets ready to block the wrecking ball again. And this was the moment Sig first realized Noor had a lot of potential. A little later, Noor runs into Sig in the hallway and asks, "When am I gonna start learning a sword skill?" Sig tells him that what skills Noor might pick up are out of his control, but Noor at least wants to see what a sword skill even looks like. He keeps pushing, so Sig agrees to show him. They go outside, and with a wave of Sig's hand, a bunch of leaves fly into the air. In a flash, Sig cuts them all with his sword skill. Noor is blown away by what he just saw, even though Sig was moving so fast he could barely keep track. Sig figured as much, since even he has trouble following his own moves when using the skill. But to Sig's surprise, Noor actually caught most of the movements. That made the sword master think Noor might one day surpass him. Unfortunately, as the days turned into months, Noor kept training. By now, he had mastered parrying, but that was about it. He hadn't picked up any other skills. Sig was starting to think just knowing how to parry wouldn't be enough for Noor to make it as an adventurer. At the end of the 3-month training period, Sig told Noor to stop training. He felt it was pointless to keep going, even though he knew Noor had tons of potential. He just assumed swordsmanship wasn't for him, so for Noor's own good, he told him to pick a different path. Noor listened and went to train under the shield sovereign Dandalg. But from the way things were going here, Noor looked totally out of place. Dandalg asked him if he was sure about this, because the training was going to be rough, but Noor was dead set on becoming an adventurer. No matter how hard it was, so he stuck with it. Seeing how determined Noor was, Dandalg decided to give him a chance. But he couldn't help worrying Noor might get himself hurt somehow. However, Noor proved him wrong. He kept up with the other students like it was no big deal. They were getting boulders thrown at them, and they had to block them with their bare bodies. And Noor was doing better than anyone expected. Then, out of nowhere, a huge section of the cliffside collapsed, falling right towards Noor. This was way beyond what Dandalg had planned for the training, so he jumped in and crushed the rock to save Noor. But as Dandalg stepped in to crush the rock, he realized Noor wasn't scared. The kid was fully ready to block that boulder with his body, even if it meant he'd die trying. Dandalg was blown away by the guts Noor showed right then and there, and he started to believe he could train Noor to become an unstoppable shield. Unfortunately, after 3 months of training, the only real skill Noor picked up was body strengthening. Dandalg knew how hard Noor had been grinding, but he couldn't keep letting him train when he wasn't seeing any real results. So after that, Noor went to the Bow Sovereign's school and asked her to train him. She wasn't too excited about it, it seemed like a hassle, but since it's her job to teach, she gave him a shot. She handed Noor a stone and told him to throw it at a stick hanging way off in the distance under a tree. She didn't think he'd hit it and was already planning to come up with an excuse for why he couldn't train there. But to her surprise, Noor nailed it on the first try. She couldn't believe what just happened, so she told him to do it again. And once again, Noor hit the stick without breaking a sweat. She wasn't thrilled by this. She could already tell Noor was going to be a tough student to deal with, but a promise is a promise. So she let Noor train with the rest of the students. But all he was doing was throwing stones at a shield. After a while, Noor asked why she had him just throwing stones when he came to learn how to shoot a bow. Eventually, Mayan gave in and handed him a practice bow. Noor was pumped to finally have it, but when he went to use it, his grip was so strong he crushed the bow in one squeeze. This was exactly the kind of headache Mayan didn't want to deal with. Every bow she gave Noor ended up breaking just as fast, so she figured if he can break my personal bow, thinking there's no way he could. But of course, Noor managed to break that one too. Frustrated, she told him to just stick to throwing stones for now. So Noor went back to chucking his stones, and Mayan asked where he learned to throw with such accuracy. Noor replied, "No one taught me, I just figured it out." This is just how Noor hunts birds back home. There's this colorful bird in the mountains that loves snatching up rabbits, so he usually hunts those. Mayan realizes he's talking about a thunder flash bird, one of the hardest birds for even experienced hunters with top-tier gear to hit. The fact that Noor can take it down with just stones, she's starting to question if he even needs to be training here at all. By the end of the 3-month training period, Mayan tells Noor there's nothing more for him to learn. Noor pushes back, saying he still hasn't learned any bow skills, but Mayan reminds him that he can't even hold a bow without crushing it. Besides, she thinks his stone throwing skills are more than enough to outclass most archers out there. After that, Noor headed to the thief's sovereign Karui to ask for training. By now, Karui had already heard about Noor from the other sovereigns, so he was cool with it and gave Noor his first task right away. The mission was simple: sneak through a dark hallway without making a sound. For someone who just got here, Noor was doing a lot better than Karui expected, dodging obstacles like it was nothing. Still, he wasn't good enough to sneak up on Karui undetected. For the next exercise, Karui set up a hallway filled with traps and told Noor and the other students they had to make it through to reach the treasure chest he had with him. Noor figured it'd be easy, so while the others were busy trying to disarm every trap, he just sprinted down the hallway. He set off all the traps, but with the skills he'd already learned, he handled everything they threw at him like a pro. Karui was blown away by how Noor dodged all the traps, but the point of the exercise was to learn how to avoid triggering them in the first place, and Noor's method wasn't exactly stealthy. When the training period ended, Karui told Noor that he's got the awareness to make a great spy, though he admitted Noor's stamina and drive were way beyond what's normal. He even offered Noor a job with the capital's intelligence agency if he ever gave up on being an adventurer. After his time with Karui, Noor went to see Oaken to learn magic. Oaken thought it was pretty wild that Noor wanted to train in magic at such a young age, especially since the age requirement is usually 15. Noor shows Oaken the permit he got from the guild and explains that he's already trained at all the other schools, but none of them worked out for him. Oaken's cool with giving it a shot, but even after 2 months of trying, Noor still couldn't use any magic. Oaken starts thinking Noor might not have been born with mana flowing in his body, and if that's the case, the only way to fix it would be to put him in the mana resonance pod. Noor's down for whatever it takes, so Oaken agrees but warns him to get out as soon as it feels too intense. Being in there can be pretty dangerous. A couple days later, Oaken hears that Noor's still inside the pod and hasn't come out once. Now Oaken's freaking out because the pod cranks up all your senses, and staying in there for days could have killed Noor. But when Oaken rushes to the pod, expecting the worst, he finds Noor just sitting there meditating. Noor even kicks him out, saying he's close to a breakthrough. After a full month in the pod, Noor only manages to learn a tiny flame spell. but since he didn't have any mana before, Oaken is impressed he can use magic at all. Then Nor casts a second tiny flame spell, and Oaken's jaw drops Nor's dual casting, something that took Oaken 50 years to figure out. Still, it's not gonna help Nor become an adventurer, so he's frustrated. Oaken feels bad that Nor couldn't learn anything more useful because with his level of talent, he could have been the world's greatest mage if he just had more mana from the start. There's only one place left for Nor to try, so he heads to Sane's training school and asks to be trained. But Sane shuts him down, saying only people who had the rite of passage at birth can train there. Nor tells him straight up he's not leaving until Sane agrees to train him. Sane calls his bluff and walks away, but days later, Nor is still there, standing in the cold, looking like he's ready to die out there if he has to. Eventually, Nor straight up collapses, so Sane finally gives in and says he'll let Nor join his training while he helps heal him up. But Sane makes it crystal clear to Nor that there's no guarantee he'll actually pick up any real skills from it. By the time training wraps up, Nor manages to learn the low heal skill, and Sane's shook cause that skill's supposed to be impossible to get unless you go through the rite of passage as a kid. Even though Nor pulled off the impossible, the low heal skill isn't even recognized by the Adventurers Guild, so it ain't gonna help him become an adventurer. Once again, Nor's left disappointed, but he still thanks Sane for all his help. A couple days later, Sane hears that Nor dipped out from the capital, so he and the other sovereigns call a meeting. They all agree Nor is a special kid, and after swapping stories about his setbacks, they all come to the same conclusion. If they train him together, Nor's gonna be a legend one day. So they set out to find him. Fast forward to the present, Nor rolls into the guild to return something to the guild master, who's hyped to see Nor alive and kicking. Little does he know, Nor Loki saved the whole city. The guild master tells Nor there's a job for him, since the city's gotta be rebuilt, and Nor already figured that was coming. So he heads out and jumps into the rebuilding work. The next morning, Nor spots Lin handing out supplies. When she sees him, she runs over all smiles and thanks him for his help the day before and for pitching in with the restoration. Nor's been grinding hard, so Lin hooks him up with a loaf of bread and tells him not to push himself too much. She gets back to work, and Nor's grateful to have folks like her around. Now that he's had something to eat, he's feeling a lot better. He lifts up his sword, admiring how sturdy it is, since it's come through for him recently. He thinks it'd be way more useful in the hands of a real adventurer. But for now, he's using it to help the people around him, whether that's handling small tasks or using his skills to protect folks from danger. That wraps up the final episode. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to stay tuned for more. I'd love to hear what you think, so drop your thoughts in the comments.